I know I'm a bit late with my coverage of the Prusa Core 1, so you probably already got the gist of what people think about the machine. But because I now got a little extra time to use the Core 1, I get to cover the things that might have been missed in the first round of content. I also happen to have an X1C at hand, and because you can't really talk about the Core 1 without also talking about the X1C, of course I'll be comparing the two, and there are actually quite a few places where Prusa is clearly trying to one-up the Bambu competitor. And it manages to do so, except for one rather important aspect that gets people to actually buy them. We'll dig into all of that. This video is supported by Voxel PLA. Let's get started. My first impression of the Core 1 was, oh, that's basically a Mark IV's with a Core XY motion system. And yeah, that's pretty much exactly what it is. It uses the same toolhead, the same bed, same electronics platform, but now is fully enclosed and, as you would expect, prints a bit faster. This time, not just from being able to do larger layer heights, it still has a high flow nozzle, but also from physically being able to move faster. So with comparable settings, the Core 1 often lands on exactly the same print times as the X1C. In some cases, the Bambu machine is still about 20% faster, but it does so at the expense of temperature control. PLA prints matte when the hot end can't quite deliver heat fast enough into the filament to fully heat it up, and with this cone printing the fastest at the bottom and then slower up top as the printer tries to keep it from overheating, the Core 1 produces a consistently glossy part, while the X1C starts out underheated at its fastest speed and fully glossy up top. This might give the Core 1 an edge in part strength, but I haven't specifically tested for this. Now, because we're already in the comparisons part, print volume. On paper, the Bambu has a larger print area, but in practice, it uses the front about 20mm of its bed for calibration patterns, and then the front left corner is also occupied by the filament cutter. So in practice, the usable bed size is basically identical between the two, but the print height is being one-upped from a usable 250mm on the X1C to 270mm on the Core 1. That's nice to have, but personally I almost only print flat parts, point in case, so for me the print area is just more important. Once you add the MMU on the Prusa or the AMS on the Bambu, that's where you'll start seeing a difference, because the Prusa will print a prime tower on the bed for purging the hot end between colors or materials, so you'll have to fit that in with your print, while the Bambu has its poop chute out the back, so it can use the full bed area for multicolor printing. Speaking of the backside, this is where the one-upping continues. So even with the old Ultimakers, it was annoying to have the filament spool in the back. You'd have to, do the blind reach around to change filament or spin the printer around on a lazy Susan or something. The Core 1 just bumps the side panels in and puts the spool right there. That's space that's not being used in a Core XY anyway, and, might as well put the spool there. Yeah, obviously this is super convenient. For the actual Core XY mechanism, the Core 1 has thicker 10mm rods on the side instead of the 8mm rods that the X1C uses, and the X-axis on the Core 1 uses a standard linear rail, similar to the original Voron design, instead of the custom carbon fiber rods. Both setups obviously work. The panels on the Core 1 are steel and polycarbonate instead of aluminum and glass. So the steel feels more solid, but the polycarbonate feels a bit more hacky, and we'll circle back to this in a bit. But with these two material choices, it also helps temperature retention inside the enclosure. So while the Core 1 does not have an active chamber heater, it does use the heated bed and its chamber fans, all the way back there, to essentially create a temperature regulated build chamber, which is really important if you want to print ABS, ASA polycarbonate. Prusa says the Core 1 goes up to 55 degrees Celsius, and I guess if your room temperature is high enough it might do that, but in my rather cool basement studio, the printer paused for about half an hour to get the chamber to 40 degrees Celsius before starting my ABS print, and 40 degrees is the default minimum starting temperature in Prusa Slicer for most of the high temperature filaments. Low temp filaments like PLA instead have a nominal or maximum temperature, and the Core 1 will try to use the chamber fans to keep the air temperature inside the machine below that. The Core 1 eventually reached about 50 degrees Celsius after a couple of layers of ABS, and it managed to produce the most accurate part compared to the X1C and the XL, which both topped out around 40 degrees Celsius inside the printer, and the Mark IV's, which obviously doesn't have an enclosure at all. Printing with ABS or ASA was kind of fading into obscurity because it was such a pain. But this preheating routine, and especially the fact that it's just something that happens automatically, is making these materials a much easier option again. An enclosure does have the downside of trapping heat whether you want it or not. So on the enclosed Bambu machines, you're supposed to take off the top panel and leave the door open when you're printing PLA. And the printer will actually yell at you if you keep the door closed. The Core 1 also has a door switch for detecting that, but you can leave it closed even for PLA because it has this sliding grill up top here that you open for PLA and leave closed for everything else. On my machine, this was quite loose, and just the PTFE tube for the hot end ended up sliding it open from brushing past it. So I tightened the screws a bit, and now it stays in place. In combination with the rear-mounted exhaust fans, this even sort of guides air over the build platform, similar to the X1C's auxiliary side fan, but of course not as directly aimed at the current layer. And for comparing these machines, I've used filament from today's sponsor, Voxel PLA. Their PLA Plus and PTG Plus filaments are optimized for high-flow, high-speed printing and are just $16.99 for a full 1 kilogram spool. And they get even cheaper with bulk discounts and free shipping on orders over $65. The filaments make no compromises on reliability and quality, and just like Prusa prints parts on their own printers, Voxel PLA are putting their money where their mouth is and exclusively uses their own filaments in their 250 printer strong print farm in Southern California. I've been very happy with their filaments, and you can be too if you check them out at the link in the description below. Now, all this effort and extra hardware would be pointless if the Core 1 wasn't producing good prints or wasn't doing so reliably. But after a week of throwing everything I could at the machine, I have nothing to report. Anything other than basically flawless prints would simply not be acceptable these days, and the Core 1 delivers. So does the X1C, the XL, the Mark IV's. I tried specifically looking for input shaping artifacts that might pop up from the faster moves, but even there, you're splitting hairs. The biggest difference was that Prusa Slicer has the Arachne slicing mode enabled by default, while Bambu Studio does not. So the Prusa machines try to reproduce more of the details that are right at the edge of what the nozzle size can handle, while the Bambu just doesn't try to print them at all. But once you use classic slicing for both, they're all producing prints that look virtually identical. If you look real close, all of the machines have the smallest amount of surface rippling, just in different spots, and none of them are really an issue. Reliability has also been great. I started most of my prints remotely through Prusa Connect straight from the slicer. The load cell based bed leveling is as consistent as ever, and most of the time I only checked on the printer once I got the notification that the print job was done. Prusa is finally also offering a first-party camera if you need more monitoring. It's a full HD camera that's specific to the Core 1, and it just snaps into the front corner of the printer magnetically. This is its own Wi-Fi device, and thankfully they've now streamlined the setup process both for the printer itself and for the camera. Both can be set up through the Prusa app. The printer itself gets a tap on the back on its NFC area, and the camera reads a QR code that the app shows. The Core 1 also still has a wired Ethernet jack, and you can of course use the networking features on the local network only without going through their cloud service or requiring an account. Or skip connecting it to a network entirely. It will happily print from a USB drive just the same. Bambu has of course recently announced the firmware updates that would stop their printers from using files that aren't signed by either Bambu Studio or their Bambu Connect application, and would also lock out accessories like the Panda Touch and remove the ability to control your own machines through Orca Slicer or Home Assistant. At the same time, their terms of service clearly state that the printers will auto-update and may entirely block you from printing if they realize you're not on the latest firmware. Obviously, and rightfully so, And that created a bit of a community response. So there's since been a new blog post saying, well, we're not actually going to enforce that. And there's also been a developer mode announced that would restore much of the functionality that the update would remove. But right now, there's just a lot of uncertainty about the exact direction that the Bambu is pushing towards. For the Core 1, Prusa has explicitly stated that you will always be able to flash whatever firmware you want, be it the Prusa or third-party ones, and they'll even honor the machine's warranty if you do so. But the thing is, everything that I talked about up until this point, features, print quality, lock-in, whatever, it doesn't actually matter when it comes to selling printers. Prusa as a whole, I think, have just become too used to what a good 3D printer is to them, and honestly, so have I. This has been a slow realization process for me over the last couple of weeks. When I look at an i3 style printer, the Mark IVS in this case, to me, this is the essence of a 3D printer. I've used printers that look like this for over a decade now, and Prusa has been making printers for just as long. But what us old folk fail to see is, to a new user, this is an intimidating machine. It has nothing to do with the things that regular people would be familiar with. How should they relate to this and feel like it's something that they can use? If you don't force yourself to regularly take that step back and really reconsider what people are going to see in your products, you end up making a Prusa XL. This is my most used 3D printer at the moment because it does so many things really well. But you show this to someone who's just looking to get their first 3D printer and tell them, yeah, this is, their flagship product. Even if you convince them that this is the best 3D printer in the world, I don't think that the average person would be confident that this is something that they can use, even if it really is no different than any other printer. But this is something that Bambu is doing incredibly well. The moment you see or touch the machine, there are just so many things that you can relate to that are familiar. The plastic panel and the buttons feel like they're straight out of an N64. The UI on the screen looks like it's a phone app. The glass panels probably run off of the same production lines that make computer case windows. And when you take it out of the box, the smell even reminds you of unboxing some quirky gadgets on Christmas morning. It looks and feels just like a regular consumer product. Everything about this is designed to immediately comfort the user and potential buyers. And then when you get to start your first print, it shakes, it makes cool noises, you get that gratification of, wow, I made it do this, this is crazy. And I think Prusa is just about starting to realize how much the emotional connection to your product matters too, but they've got quite a way to go. You take the Core 1 out of the box, and the first thing you get to do is going to be the most unsatisfying peel of your life. Just please pre-peel these in the factory. In the Mark IVS video, I've already talked about how the UI of the printer and of Prusa Slicer are highly functional and packed with features, but come with a distinct Eastern European simplistic vibe that takes some time to soak up. I do appreciate the modability of the Core 1, and one of the first things I did was print a filter holder for the back fans that takes these Uppert particle filters that IKEA stocks for $5 a pop. And Prusa is also making a GPIO expansion board that you can interface with through G-code, so you can easily tie the printer into other automation stuff if you want to do that. And of course, on the Prusa platform, none of the networking functionality is locked down, so you can integrate and control it through tools like Home Assistant. I think with the Core 1, from a technical and functional standpoint, Prusa has finally made that product that eliminates all the easy, yeah, but it doesn't do this sort of arguments, especially when comparing against, this. We do have to quickly talk about pricing though, and especially US pricing is going to fluctuate. Tariffs, of course, but also for right now, all of the Core 1 units are shipping from Prague. But pretty soon they will start building them in the US and shipping them domestically. So the total cost for getting one in the US is likely going to come down. The most surprising thing to me about pricing was that essentially, the Core 1 is making the Mark IVS obsolete. To make it an apples-to-apples comparison with the enclosure, the Core 1 actually ends up being €50 cheaper than the Mark IVS, while also being a better printer in every single way you stack things. If you already have one, you can also upgrade the Mark IVS to a Core 1. but you're paying almost 50% of the price of a full Core 1 kit, so I just don't think it's worth converting a perfectly fine printer if you could just sell it and buy a complete Core 1 kit instead. I tried to figure out prices between the X1C and the Core 1, and with adding shipping, imports and taxes for the US, which most of you are watching from, right now the assembled Core 1 is a little more expensive than the X1C, because that's on sale right now, and that also includes the body cam to make them more comparable. Regular prices for just the printers with shipping and all gets them exactly tied for total cost. But you can also get the kit version of the Core 1, which drops the price by $250, making it significantly cheaper than the X1C. And I think both options make the Core 1 really good value overall, especially for a product that is engineered and manufactured locally here in Europe and soon assembled in the US as well. For the kit version that you get to assemble yourself, I'd guess that would take you less than a day if you've never built a 3D printer before. But if you're at all interested in how things work and you have the time, assembling a Prusa kit usually is a pretty good experience. So there we go. Honestly, the Core 1 was inevitable for Prusa. With the general perception of, if it's not a Core XY, it's not worth getting, this is the printer they just had to make. And they managed to engineer a printer that now does basically everything an X1C does, and even does something significantly better, like controlling enclosure temperature instead of controlling you. Which one you get, or recommend for people to get, is now just down to which of their strengths are more important to you. I hope I managed to lay out all the important bits for you to make that decision, and if it tips in favor of the Core 1, Prusa gave us reviewers affiliate discount codes, but didn't actually set up a discount for you. So what I'll try to do to make up for it is that for the entire month of February, I'll use my affiliate commission and donate 50 euros to my local dog shelter for every order of a Core 1 if you use Made with Layers as a discount code. I know it's still not a discount for you, but it's the least I can do. As always, thank you to all of you for watching and subscribing. We just made it past 500,000 subs, and even though that number doesn't really mean much anymore on YouTube, it's still incredible to think that 500,000 of you actively decided, like, yeah, I want to see more of this guy, please. So thank you. A huge shout out to everyone who supported me on the way to 500,000 through Patreon and YouTube memberships. As always, keep on making, and I'll see you in the next one.